Welcome to What the Health? Where anything health is fair game as we tackle the trends and bust the myths about health and wellness. Here are your hosts, Dr. Dan and Angela Toro.
And welcome to another What the Health podcast. I am Dr. Dan here with my co-host,
Angela. Welcome back, guys. Should I just get it out of the way here?
Yeah, get it out of the way.
You know the drill at this point. So we're here for informational purposes only, in no way offering individualized medical advice. As always consult your trusted healthcare professional before making any changes to your life and health habits.
Very good. And we will be discussing a lot about life and health habits today as we are discussing generational health. Not generational wealth, as so many people have come to
focused on.
Focused on, which we'll touch on,
yes,
and how finances do play a role in your health and well-being. But generational health. So, how did we come upon this topic? Because we're actually celebrating it in the office this month. So, how did we come across this, and what do we want to share with our audience today?
Yeah, I think we've just been seeing a lot of people lately that kind of in our age range where they're sort of at that point where maybe parents are starting to get a little bit older, or they might be having young kids, or their kids are starting to get older, and we just see a lot of people where they're either feeling older than they should, or they're getting into the habit of sort of blaming it on their genes. So, I have that symptom, but that runs in the family. That's just, that's kind of the way it is, or I just feel this way because that's the way it is.
My mother had this, and so I guess I'm just getting this.
I'm just getting older, so I'm just, I'm tired, and that's, things like that, where we're just kind of seeing a lot more of this, just sort of seeing a different perspective of how people are looking at things and how people are kind of accepting a certain fate without realizing how much control we really do have over our health and well-being.
Yeah, so many of us, and we've had these conversations before about, genetics and, how many people have become victims of their genes, right? They think because their parents had it, their grandparents had something, so now they're doomed to have, heart disease, cancer, diabetes, arthritis, tingling and numbness, whatever condition that their parents or grandparents had, they feel that they're doomed to have this. And unfortunately, what science has proven over the years is that is not the case. There's a whole field now called epigenetics, which means that really the function of your genes comes from the control and the coordination of the environment that you put your genes in. In fact, if you really want to dive into this, I first started learning about this topic over a decade ago when I was in chiropractic school, but there's a fantastic author, microbiologist, PhD, by the name of Bruce Lipton, and he wrote a book called Biology of Belief. And the whole book is around the premise of really discrediting the gene theory of, your genes determine your health, determine your well-being. We just know that's not true anymore. Is there some component, some connection to your genetics and your health and well-being? Yes, there is. But there's a much stronger component of the environment that your genes are put in. So he did an experiment from the cellular basis of they took pluripotential cells, which are stem cells. So, and these cells basically have not differentiated into any other types of cells yet. We all have these stem cells in our body. We have a lot more of them when we're younger, but we all have them and have the ability to create them throughout our life. But these stem cells don't have any specific, they haven't become nerve or bone or muscle or digestive cells yet, or skin cells. They really have the ability to differentiate or grow into anything. So he took these stem cells and put them into a couple different petri dishes, one with bone, one with muscle, one with nerves, and what he found is that the stem cells that went into the petri dish with muscle cells, what did they become? They became muscle cells. When he took those stem cells and put them into the petri dish with bone cells, they became bone cells. when he took those cells and put them into a petri dish with nerve cells, they became nerve cells. And then he actually did a final experiment and then took like cancerous or diseased cells and put the stem cells in with those, and the stem cells actually became diseased. They took on the expression of the environment that they went in. Because all those stem cells, again, going back to what it is genetically, all those stem cells are exactly the same. Mm-hmm. But they ended up expressing the environment that they were in. So I think it's so important for us to discuss when we're talking about health from one generation to the next, is that you are not a victim of your parents or your grandparents or your great-grandparents. You are much more a product of the environment that you are in currently, or what you have experienced over the last several decades, which I think is important, because we don't just inherit our genes, we also inherit lifestyles. If our parents lived a certain way, or if you grow up in a household with parents who smoked, you're much more likely to smoke. If you grow up in a household that eats dinner at a certain time, or eats dinner in front of the TV, you're much more likely to do that because you've inherited a lifestyle. So I think it's important for us to understand our generational health from one to the next, as a way of how can we break the cycle if we're unhappy with it, or how can we optimize the cycle if we are experiencing very good health and want to continue that on.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, is that again, a lot of people, if you're in your 30s, 40s, you're kind of in that age where you can see both directions. You can see the future, with how your parents are living and what their life's looking like as they're getting into their older years. And then you can see your children or nieces, nephews, if, just the young kids in your life, and you can kind of see how they're living. And so then you sort of get it's like blast from the past. And so you start remembering how you were raised and comparing and contrasting. So it kind of puts you in this interesting place where you're like, it's a good time to really reflect and go, okay, well, let's look at how my parents are living. Is that how I want to be? Are they, on their own, getting around, being able to do the things that they want to do, get up and down steps, get up and out of a chair, like little things like that at this age we're not thinking about, but as you we talk about all the time, as you age, and if you don't take care of yourself, those things all become more difficult. So, are they having balance issues? Are they having a lot of chronic conditions? Are they on a lot of medications? What does their life look like? And are you following in those footsteps? Are you living the same? I mean, obviously you were raised by them. You can't go back and change how you were raised, but are you continuing patterns that are going to eventually lead to that road? Yep. And then same thing, looking back, looking at, how your kids are growing up compared to how you were. Are they doing the same habits? Are you teaching them good habits? Are you leading by example? Are you, like you said, are you sitting down to dinner as a family? That's probably one of the big ones I think about that you just don't see a lot anymore, between people being busy and just with the electronics everywhere, is this whole idea. I mean, I remember we sat down every night at dinner, and short of if somebody had a sports event or practice or something, that they couldn't be there. I mean, we were there at the table and, every night having that dinner. So yeah, definitely just, it's a good time to really reflect and see, are you living the life that you want? Are you raising your kids to be healthy and happy and productive individuals? And are you putting yourself on a path to live and be able to live and flourish well into your older years? Or have you accepted sort of, dad's sick all the time and has a hard time getting around. That's going to be me in 30 years. And I think, have you just sort of already mentally accepted that? Or are you doing what you need to do so that that's not the way that you're going to be? Because again, we always say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, next best time's today. Yeah. So if you're not happy with something the way it is, now's the time to change it, because if you wait another 30 years, again, not impossible, but it's going to be just that much harder to reverse all of those, compounding effects of an unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah, and there's this concept of neuroplasticity, okay, and that's the ability of your nervous system to kind of rewire itself and form new patterns, new habits, new pathways. You don't have like this static, like all your connections in your brain and your spinal cord. They're not like formed and they can't change. They absolutely can. And so if we think of like if a stream of water, let's say is running off the side of a house, and then it starts cutting through like the concrete a little bit, or let's just say a gravel driveway, and so that stream of water starts to form. Well, then anytime it rains, anytime it's wet out, that water is going to start to follow the exact same pathway and cut further and further into the gravel driveway. That's similar to how your nervous system works. Pathways that are fired, habits that are done, repeatedly over and over and over again, those connections become more and more hardwired into the brain. It doesn't mean they can't be broken, but it becomes harder and harder and harder. And let's think about that from a habit perspective. That's why it's so difficult to break habits, unhealthy habits, and to form new ones, because if you've done it for a long period of time, a year, 5 years, a decade or more, those habits are very hardwired into your nervous system, so it becomes harder. We call it neurorigidity. Okay, it becomes hard for your system to break that pattern. So it doesn't mean it's impossible, but the longer you wait, the harder it becomes to break that habit. So I think one of the most important things that we do want to say is that you have to understand that you can change it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're not doomed or destined to get sick. We have a lot of family history of heart disease, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's, dementia, go down the list. I mean, we probably have every, an aunt, uncle, grandparent, great-grandparent that has every one of those major conditions or multiple of them. Yeah. And it hasn't even crossed my mind that I'm doomed to get any one of those because, again, we have now, uncovered and learned the truth that we're not destined for that. We can change our environment, change our health patterns, and make sure that, we're not going to be destined to get that. So, and again, it's not 100%. Doesn't mean I won't necessarily get cancer or, have some sort of heart disease down the road. But even if it does get to that point, there are ways and methods that you can support it and get around it and healthfully overcome it. So, again, it's not a death sentence anymore.
Yeah.
So I think that's what, the big thing that we're talking about here is, like Angela said, you have the advantage of seeing your parents and where they have gone. And, do you want to continue following that path? Are you happy with, the health and well-being that your parents, have lived? Or are, you not so happy with it and you want to make changes, especially for your kids, your grandkids, nieces, nephews, and help support more of a healthy life so that they can live it into the next generations.
Yeah, and I think, and you brought up, you kept talking about habits and how hard it is to break habits, and that's, I think that's what's so important too, and that's really a big takeaway from this is that it is much easier to raise healthy children than to take care of sick adults or to try to change the habits of sick adults and unhealthy adults.
Yes.
So there are definitely, and again, things are changing all the time. Whatever the thing we think is healthy this week, who knows? It's we grew up in the low-fat diet craze, where again that stuff was
high sugar, low fat.
Supposed to be healthy, and that now we're dealing with sugar addiction because of it, and again, and that's just something that's a product of our childhood and how we were raised, and it wasn't that they were doing anything wrong. It's just that was what was considered. That was the healthy stuff at that time. So again, it's about but just basic healthy habits, making sure that we did a podcast recently on listening to your body and not battling your biology. So even teaching your kids from a young age just to, again, listen to their body, that it's okay to not eat if you're not, there's that whole idea, finish what's on your plate, and it's dinner time, so you're gonna eat, like that. It's okay to just say, I'm not hungry. It's okay to go to bed hungry. I'm probably gonna get yelled at for saying it's okay to send a kid to bed hungry, but I'm not saying don't feed your children, but it's okay to not be full all the time, or to feel to have that. So it's okay to recognize, when are you actually need something, when are you, and when do you just want something because you want it? Yeah. When does it become a habit? And again, those habits are healthy habits are so much easier learned young, and the unhealthy habits are learned young too. So it's being careful and watching are some of those one-time things turning into everyday things, and making sure that because again, we're all gonna have those days where it's fine, eat in front of the TV. It's whatever. It's been a long day. It's crazy. It's just the kitchen's a mess. Fine, eat in front of the TV. But is that becoming an everyday thing? Yeah. Is that and I think of it like brushing your teeth. Every adult, hopefully, shouldn't assume, Careful. But most adults don't think about, you just do it. You don't think about it. It's just, in fact, if you have one of those nights where you fall asleep without brushing your teeth, it's first thing you think, when you wake up, you're like, oh, that was awful. and just, I remember when I was traveling to Thailand, and it was 45 hours of travel. And it was at one point, I'm I just need to go brush my teeth in the bath. It was just, because it just had been so long. And I'm I just need to brush my teeth. We don't think anything of it. A kid would literally just never brush their teeth if they're not taught. There's nothing intuitive necessarily about brushing that. So that's a healthy habit that's taught and learned, and there's a lot of fighting with them at first to get them to do it. But that if taught young, they'll never think about it again. Yeah. We don't sit there and you have to, fight with yourself every night. Oh, I guess I have to brush my teeth again. You just do it. And so that any healthy habit can be that way. Because I see, I work with a lot of adults, obviously, that are trying to make healthy changes. And a lot of people, come into the gym and they're just, they do it, they're putting in the work, but they hate it. They're just and I'm sitting there, I love being in the gym. Yeah. That's one of my favorite places to be. So it's just, it's interesting to think about that. Because again, it's, health shouldn't feel like a chore. Mm-hmm. So if you work on these things from a young age, and you find the things that you enjoy as a family, and then find the individual things, what you like to do, your kids might not. Yeah. So, it's great if they do, you've gotten Ethan into lifting with you, which is great. That's something you can do together. But, at some point there might be a sport or something that he wants to do that you have no interest in. But, that's great. Let kids find what they enjoy that's going to keep them active and healthy, because if they enjoy it, it just becomes one more normal part of their routine, and not something that they feel is, a chore or burden to have to do. Yeah. I see a lot of adults where they see, going to the gym is oh man, this is just one more thing I have to do, and not something that they're truly enjoying and really seeing and feeling the benefits of, which is a shame, because there's so many benefits to exercising and being healthy, which we talk about all the time.
Well, and I think we've talked about, we're talking about generational health here, but also we have to, certainly take into account how culture has changed throughout the generations, because in many ways we have information at our fingertips. We are so blessed to be able to just pull up Google or, whatever search browser you want, and it's hey, I want to know information on this. I heard a friend, say this, and, my doctor said this. It's my good, patients come into the office anymore, and it's half the time they know better than the doctor, because they've done, 20 Google searches, and, they're down the rabbit hole of whatever they believe their condition is. And so, but with that also comes, we are not living connected to the land the way, maybe 3 generations ago would have, the settlers, the Native Americans, the settlers who came over, and it's there was no such thing as electricity yet, in the, early 1700s, early 1800s. It's there was, indoor plumbing was only becoming a thing, in the, late 1800s, 1900s. It's so this whole concept of, of, living off the land. When you woke up and there's no electricity, you're not connected to a screen. You go outside. You gotta, milk cows and clean the chickens and clean the chicken coop.
You can tell Dr. Dan really is up on his farming. He's cleaned a lot of chickens in his day.
They're moving around, and so they don't have to go to the gym like that. That would be such a foreign concept if you took someone from the 1800s and brought them to today.
Yeah.
They'd be like, what are all these centers here?
Yeah,
that, people are on treadmills and ellipticals and they're lifting weights. It's like, to them it was like they lifted lumber to build a fence.
Exactly,
or, they moved rocks around to maybe help create some sort of a water a water reservoir or whatever the case may be. And it's like they were just strong, healthy individuals because that's what their bodies were created to do, and that's what they used.
That's what they needed to do.
That's what they used every single day. So now we have information, we have a wealth of knowledge at our fingertips, but we don't have the culture, the lifestyle to support it. Now, again, I think we're slowly transitioning back a little bit because things like sitting at a desk. People are becoming very aware of, maybe I shouldn't sit at my desk all day. Maybe get a standing desk that can go up and down. There's so many people will put their laptop on a treadmill now, and they'll be, doing slow walking while they're taking a phone call, while they're on the computer. So they're connected that way. They get out at lunchtime and, take a walk outside. And so we're kind of relearning these, these habits, these healthy habits that are ingrained, in our genes. I think in a lot of ways that, the internet has become, again, it can be a great tool, but a great downfall. And, we're starting to kind of relearn and get reconnected back to how our bodies are supposed to function. And the more you can feed the body, we talk about this all the time, it knows how to be healthy. It needs to move. It needs to have good healthy fats. It needs to have good healthy, good healthy carbohydrates, good healthy proteins. You give your body what it needs in terms of fuel and energy usage in terms of your musculoskeletal, neuromusculoskeletal system, and exercise every day, then it will be healthy. you got to give it the ingredients that it needs. So we're fighting that uphill battle of technology, but I think in a lot of ways the wisdom of the world is we can just cross-reference anything so quickly now. Even when we were starting elementary school, it's like we still had to go to the library. I mean, we were just on the cusp of that generation where it was like, looking up library cards and, taking out a book and referencing. And, now it's like, I got to do a book report. It's like...
We would do projects with encyclopedias. Yeah. Kids, do they even know what an encyclopedia is?
I don't think so. So, it's about that. So taking that to the generational, how do we take where we're at and bring it to the next generation? And
I think, honestly, I think the shutdown from the pandemic made people even more aware of how important those little movements throughout the day are. Because I know I've been talking to a lot of people and they're like, I always had a desk job, but I drove to work and then I walked into the building and I walked up a flight of steps to get to the building, and then you walk around it's like all of a sudden it's like I get out of bed and I go to my desk. Some people's desk is in there, so it's like
it's in their bed.
It's like all of a sudden I got 100 steps in the day, and so people again getting groceries delivered instead of going to the grocery store and walking around the grocery store. So it's like even just in the last couple years, our lifestyle has become even more, like we've taken away even more of those, what we call just like the extra steps throughout the day, the physical activity steps versus the exercise steps. So I think people are becoming even more and more aware of that. And like you said, it's just awareness is key. Yeah. And then it's figuring out, okay, how do I get those steps back into my day? Because we talk about to be as active as our ancestors are. You have to walk 12 to 15 miles a day, and again, that's just not going to happen in this day and age. No one's saying that it is, but there are, if you look at your day, okay, are there times that I could be moving as opposed to, doing more sitting things? So if you have a very sedentary job, then you might want to look for your leisure time for more active things to do. And again, I'm not saying you have to go, run a marathon, but, get outside, go for a walk, just anything that kind of gets you up and move. Go play pickleball. That's the new thing. It's a lot of fun.
I have yet to play it. I haven't played.
But then on the opposite, if you have a very intense job, like you were just, if you're a construction worker or somebody that's doing a lot of manual labor during the day, then you might need to use your leisure time for more rest and recovery and healing. And so it's not, there's no one size fits all. Everybody wants tell me the magic solution.
Yeah, the magic bullet, the silver bullet. I get that a lot.
And it's like, well, again, it's about finding that balance in your day, making sure you're having you're being active, whether that's naturally occurring in your job and your lifestyle, or whether you're kind of trying to find that and fit that in a little bit more because you have not every job can be done moving around. Some jobs have to be done in a desk. That's the world we live in now. So how do you, like you said, mix in the activity throughout the days? Are you able to take breaks? Are you able to walk around? Are you able to, kind of slip that activity back into your day? And then again, making sure you're teaching your children that, because they're, unfortunately it's, schools are, some of them are doing okay and some of them are going the wrong direction, taking recess away, taking gym class away. It's like, no, we need more of this. We need more. And then we wonder why kids are all over the place and can't focus. It's like, well, because kids aren't meant to sit, no one's meant to sit and stare to, sit and be focused for 8 hours a day. And now, so again, it's just, and that's part of what I was saying, where, teaching your kids to listen to their body and express what they're feeling and not feel like, it's, if they're feeling like they have a lot of pent up energy, let them go run around at the end of the day, get them in a sport or take them to the park, or if you have the luxury of having a backyard, send them out, that's, let them be kids. That's, they kind of naturally know what they want to do. They want to move, they want to run, they want to do that. So making sure that they have that outlet as well, because sitting all day in school and trying to be focused for that whole time can be difficult.
Well, and that's what, so you bring up a good point there with, we're trying to force our kids into an artificial environment. And then what's our solution? We want to medicate them to keep them in that artificial environment rather than, addressing the cause or the root of the problem, especially boys. Like, boys tend to have a lot more energy. So it's like you take a boy, put him in a classroom where they have to sit for 8 hours, maybe they get, 20 minutes at recess and, they get to change scenery 20 minutes at lunch, but it's like, now they've got all this pent up energy, they can't focus. And so now they're diagnosed with hyperactivity, ADHD, because they can't focus. And so what do we want to do? We want to give them a medication to help slow their brain down when really they need nature. They need to be outside. They need to be moving around.
They need to bounce. They need to run. They need to jump.
They should be, doing that 4 hours a day rather than, 20 minutes. And so, really getting to the root of what the health problem is. And, again, one thing I think the pandemic showed us is that, there are different options for education out there. I know a lot of families that decided they were going to start homeschooling their kids because they didn't like the way that, schools responded and, had the online learning. But there are online schools for kids who don't like the classroom environment. There's just so many options for education now that are out there. You have to find what works best for you, your kids, your family, and be able to take that, and hopefully build those healthy habits into your routine. So that's where, from one generation to the next, you're not just changing, you're not inheriting genes and strictly, doomed to whatever you get. You do inherit a lifestyle and, habitual patterns that you get from your family as well. So it's really up to you on whether or not you're going to continue those those patterns or make intentional choices to break those patterns and create new healthy patterns for you and your family moving forward. One thing I talked about earlier in the episode here is that neuroplasticity versus neurorigidity. When you have a very rigid nervous system, your body is stuck, okay? So it doesn't want to break out. And so we talk about that from a chiropractic side of things, is when your nervous system is rigid, it's stuck, it's not adapting. Many times it needs a good adjustment where it's going to help to kind of, pattern interruption, okay? There's a whole like neuro-linguistic, idea of pattern interruption. So if someone is thinking a negative thought or something, I've heard there's examples of people like wearing a rubber band around their wrist, and if they have like a negative thought or they think something that just is off of what they're trying to create in their life, they'll say something to interrupt that, or they'll snap the rubber band to kind of like interrupt that pattern. It's even like disciplining a child. If the child's having like a major meltdown, sometimes a tap on the butt is like, hey, it's a pattern interruption because their brain is literally on this vicious cycle and they can't get out of it. So you're trying to snap them out of it. But the chiropractic adjustment can be this interruption to this pattern of stuckness, of rigidness. And so we see many times families will choose chiropractic care as not because they're trying to get out of pain, even though that can be very beneficial for that, but because they're trying to build new healthy patterns and a nervous system that is supple, it's plastic, it's adaptive, it's open to new patterns, it's open to new habit changes. It makes you more able to be to adapt those new healthy patterns into your lifestyle. So that's where as a chiropractor, I see that all the time, where rather than being very, very rigid and trying to make changes, now you get kids and families who have been stuck in a certain way. Now their bodies, their physiology is starting to change because their nervous systems are rewiring, they're becoming more adaptive, and now they're better able to make those habitual changes, those lifestyle changes that's going to carry through their family and hopefully into a new generation. Mm-hmm. So. Yep.
So yeah, it's never too late to make changes. There's the earlier the better, but again, it's that idea of just becoming victim to your quote unquote victim to your genes is I think the idea that everyone needs to get out of their head. You're not doomed at all. Yeah. And it's just about, and again, you can do everything right, and like you said, does it mean we're never going to get sick, we're never going to have issues? No, but again, every healthy choice that you make is ultimately going to help you better be able to handle when those times come up. And ultimately, you just want to give yourself and your family the best chance possible in what is sometimes a very unhealthy world. So the more that you can, we always say that you're either going to invest in your health now or you're going to invest in your sickness later.
You'll be forced to invest in it later, exactly.
So that's, putting the time and energy now to being healthy, and so that will give you more healthy years to live and to enjoy with you and your family. That's ultimately what we want for the families that come into our office and our life, and that's what we want for you guys. Yeah,
I think you said something that's very important that I wanted to touch on there about the you're going to get sick, right? Or you're much of this episode we were talking about redefining what health is and patterns are, and one thing I talk about in the book is symptoms are a sign of something going on in your body. Doesn't mean that it needs to be medicated or masked, but they're signals, that something is going on. So for example, it's like let's say you're around a lot of individuals in the gym or at the office, and now all of a sudden your lymph nodes start to get a little bit swollen, and maybe you feel a little bit feverish one evening, and getting a little bit of chills, and so all of these signs or symptoms of being sick. Well, it's like when I was going through school, I started to kind of readapt my brain to say, okay, it's not necessarily, it's what society says is, oh, you're sick, but yeah, you might be labeled as sick, but your body is truly adapting in a very healthy way. Like if your body's comes in contact with a virus, if your lymph nodes start to swell, your adenoids, your tonsils, all those, nice glands in the back of the throat and the neck, your body gets a little feverish. That's a very healthy adaptation to an encounter with a virus. So our body it might be deemed sick, but it's adapting in a healthy way. You eat, we talk about this in turn, you eat something wrong, you have some food poisoning, or again, get attacked by a stomach virus.
Stomach virus going around.
Yeah, it's like, a healthy response to that would be vomiting, okay, because your body is trying to get it out, or having diarrhea because it's trying to flush the colon out, okay? Oh, good, I made it through an episode talking about poop, Got to add that in there. So I think part of this discussion needs to be this idea of, when we're breaking patterns, we need to reframe how we're thinking about how our bodies function. And, when you have these signs, these signals, these symptoms, it doesn't mean that we need to rush off and we need to medicate it, right? I mean, that's our generation and generations before. We're taught like, oh, your body's feverish, Tylenol, ibuprofen, take something to bring down the fever. It's like, wait a minute. The fever is exactly what the body needs to help fight off the virus. And, again, you look at some of these national organizations now, if you actually read, what they recommend, many times they say, a fever up to 105, 106 degrees. I think some of them even reference 107 degrees. As long as that fever is spiking and is up there for maybe 15, 20 minutes and then comes back down and it goes in this, high-low pattern, that's exactly how your body and fever is supposed to function. But what do? We'll take the temperature and it's like, oh my God, it's 103 degrees, 104 degrees. We need to pop some medication, to bring that fever down. Well, you literally just did the antithesis, the opposite of what the body is trying to do to fight the illness. And so what do you do now? There is research showing that, kids who are given antibiotics or given Tylenol or given these medications to fight the body's natural, immune response, they actually have a harder time fighting infections down the road even into adulthood. And they have these hyperactive immune responses. So again, I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. This is, with your trusted health professional, but I've had many experiences where, I've never medicated my kids for a fever. Never. Okay. They've had fevers in their life. My one son is 11. He's had a handful of fevers throughout his life. But I don't think he's ever had a fever longer than, a 24-hour span, whereas his temperature has been up and down because his body recognizes what's going on. It'll send his temperature up, down, and then usually within a night, it's gone the next morning because his body fights it very effectively because it's been trained to do so. We allow it to run its course. So I think helping to reframe how we look at illness versus natural, healthy physiological function. Like I don't even like to call it, sickness anymore. Someone's fighting a head cold or fighting a sore throat, or they're might have a little bit of congestion in the chest or the sinus. They have a stomach virus. It's like your body is functioning exactly how it should. If it's vomiting, if it's sore, the lymph nodes are sore and swollen, you're feverish. Like that's how the body should fight. Yeah, it might be a state of illness, but that state of illness is almost a transition or an adaptive state of health because that's how it's supposed to function in order to fight off the virus, that immune response. So helping to reframe some of that in terms of how we think, I think is also very important in terms of passing that off for ourselves and for the next generation of our kids and their kids. And again, breaking those, those misconceptions about what we need to do in an illness or a sickness state, or just keep your damn hands off and just let your body run its course. So.
And that all comes back to, again, you have to be taking care of your body on a regular basis. If you're in a chronic state of inflammation and your toxicity, you're not going to be able to do that. So your body's not going to be able to function that way. So that's where, again, it all comes back to that building up the generational health, building up the healthy family for yourself, for your family, having a healthy environment, that's going to allow your body to react exactly the way that you just described. So you can't live in a chronic state of toxicity, which we have other podcasts on that with this, the inflammation one would be a great one to listen to. We're kind of in this chronic state of inflammation anymore. And that's the problem is, we can't live in that chronic state and then expect our body to do what it's designed to do because it can't. It's in overdrive. So that's where it really comes back to that. You need to have those everyday healthy habits, and then yes, your body can do exactly that. And that's what the whole book is about. The Design to Heal book. If you haven't had one, grab one next time you're in the office, or you can request a copy online. But it's ultimately that is. We say it all the time. If you take care of your body, it will take care of you. And that's, at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's not always easy, but it really does. If you put in the time and effort, just like anything, if you put in the time and effort, it becomes easier and it becomes very much well worth it. So.
Yeah. Well, and so one final thought on that with the toxicity thing is that, we're talking about generational health, and so we have to talk about the procreation side of things. Okay, having kids, and so let's look at this in terms of our sperm and egg cells. Well, those are a part of our reproductive health and well-being. Well, if you have a man or woman who are toxic in their body, either mentally, emotionally, or really from an inflammatory standpoint. First of all, it can become very hard to get pregnant. Infertility is significantly on the rise. So again, our physiology is trying to tell us something that, hey, you're not healthy enough to procreate, to support.
Which again is exactly what your body's designed to do.
Exactly.
To stop reproduction if it thinks you're in a dangerous or environment where you're not going to be able to support the child.
Yes. And please understand, we're not trying to be, because I know that reproduction can be an extremely emotional, time. So I'm not trying to just tell you that, something that you did is wrong.
No, we're talking we're saying our lifestyle, our generation.
Our culture. Yes, we're under this state of stress. Again, we're in an environment that we're not natural. Being attached to screens and our food supply. We had this conversation last night at a family event that was just like our food supply is not what it was several generations ago. We're not walking outside and picking food from our garden, although people are trying to plant more gardens and stuff. I'm hearing more about that. But let's look at this. If if you have a man and woman come together and you have egg cell, sperm cell that are not that, and even if they do maybe have the ability to conceive, and move into and have a pregnancy, you could, there is research showing that the health of mom and dad perinatally, in and around the pregnancy significantly impacts the health of the child, even to the point of, mental emotional health, the point of gut health, a lot of times that bacteria that transfers from mom in the birth process, from, her vagina and anus when, she's birthing her child, that bacteria that passes from her to the kid, to her child, that has a big impact on then the child's gut health and their health moving forward. So there's this whole area of study now and clinical work in helping moms and dads be as healthy as possible even before they even start to consider having children, because leading up to conceiving has a big impact, and that's that whole epigenetic concept of genes turn on and off based on the environment they're put in. So if you can get mom and dad as healthy as possible possible, and then they end up conceiving, having a child, then that child is going to be much better off, statistically in terms of their health and well-being moving forward. But again, nothing is doomed one way or another. Yeah. So, regardless of where you're at, you can't change the past, but you can change where you're at and moving forward. So, everything is adaptable. Everything has the ability to improve if you put the time, energy, and effort into learning what you can do and then applying it on a individual and family basis. So that's our talk on generational health. I hope that your generation and the next lives in health. And if you are looking for more ways on how to get healthy and stay healthy, you can check out our podcasts that are all lined up. You can check out our website, Turo, Turo, familychiropractic.com. And with that, anything else?
No, I think that was a good one. So hopefully you guys found something helpful. You can always reach out with questions. If you are a patient, remember that working on those lifestyle changes is part of what I do as well. So if you kind of feel stuck, don't know what to do, feel like you're kind of in that pattern of unhealthy habits and are looking to make those changes, always feel free to reach out to me, make an appointment. We can work on that as well. So.
Absolutely. And I hope after listening, you don't wait a generation to come listen again. So we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Take care.
You've been listening to What the Health with Dr. Dan and Angela Toro, brought to you by Toro Family Chiropractic. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.whatthehealth.world.